Have you here on this Monday. Great crowd. We got a great speaker. Looking forward to hearing what Heath Schuler has to say. I think, in booking our speakers, how cool is it that we have one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of Tennessee? The week we play Tennessee, next week we have one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of Alabama, Jay Barker, the week we play Alabama. May not make a bit of difference on what happens on Saturday, but it'll be interesting to hear. And I know we're all sort of down and not feeling good, and if you're Tennessee, you're not feeling good, you're sort of down. And so I thought, we remember the simple things in life when, we remember it was just a game. And if we could, Matt, are you ready? I want you to look. We're going to pan over here. We've got a special little guest here. If Matt can pick him up because he didn't want to come to the head stage. This is 3-year-old. Can you zoom in on Emma? Where is she at? Right, look at there. She's got her Tennessee color. Let's give her a round of applause, Emma. Look at there. She's got her Tennessee overalls. She's not booing. She's just here to eat and meet Heath Schuler. That's right. We're great to have Emma here. Got a full program. Let's go ahead and bring up Gary and lead us in a word of prayer, please. Gary Underwood.
Thank you, David. I watched the game Saturday night with some family, and I will give credit to whichever family member said this, and I'll clean it up a little bit. Sometime during the first half, he said, "We haven't been in the Southwest Conference since 1992, and we're still getting Texas refs." I thought that's pretty good. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity to gather together and enjoy each other's company. Thank you for the food and use it to give us strength to serve you today. Thank you for those that prepared it. Lord, just use us today in every way possible. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Gary. I did want to make mention, I never tell our speakers this, and I don't know if you members have ever wondered about it, but do you notice that we play different fight songs? That you heard Rocky Top and Alabama's fight song and Notre Dame. Did you notice that? Do you wonder why we do that? Everybody knows, right? Because those are the fight songs of all of our speakers. And so we've had 2 Notre Dames at Tennessee, and we got Alabama. That's a tough pill to swallow and eat lunch after hearing those songs. But if any of you wondered, that's what we do, and that's why we play that to welcome our guest. And I did want to make mention, too, Heath, we got a great group of members. We've got them as young as Emma coming at 3. And also, we get some, if you listen to the buzz, things aren't always positive these days. It's not easy doing a 4-hour radio show, right, Tommy, Roger, RJ? No, and even the midday. But I look out in the crowd, and I see a guy who is 90 years old, and he's been coming to probably every meeting we've had here 12 years ago. And if he can hear me, I want him to stand up. Roy Rainey. Let's give Roy a round of applause. 90 years old. Stand up, Roy. There he is. There he is. That's our man. Listen, Roy said, forget about the score. I'm just glad to be here today. Right, Roy? Dang straight. Dang straight. Amen. Want to remind everybody to RSVP, if you could, for Jay Barker next week. I think that will be a great meeting as well. Please do that by next Friday at 10 o'clock. 50-yard line members, get your picture taken with Heath. Bring up your yellow tickets if you don't mind. If there's a few of you that want to get your picture that aren't 50-yard line members, just let those folks get their pictures and sponsors first, and we'll try to take care of you. I want to remind everybody to check out, I didn't realize this, but Heath told me that he actually played with Willie Roaf at New Orleans. So proud of our awards that we present here at the club. Always check those out. Always have the Brules Award back there since it's the 20th anniversary as well. Do want to thank our sponsors real quick, Twin City Limousine, Dale Bennett, Greg Hatcher, thank you for their service. Little Rock Convention and Visitor Bureau, Gretchen Hall, David Russell, proud to be called the Little Rock Touchdown Club. 103.7 The Buzz, Justin and Pat out there broadcasting live today. CJRW handling our advertisement and promotion for the Cliff Harris Award. We appreciate them. Epic Men's Health. Guys, make sure and get your testing done. $1,600 free test if you'll go by there. Make sure you do that this year. Do want to thank Mike Whitfield, Scott Davis, and all the gang over at Epic. Farm Bureau, Pulaski County, Todd Dennis, Shauna Hopper, and Stephen Reichard. Make sure give these guys a chance to write some of your insurance needs if you can. Good folks, glad to have them as a sponsor, Farm Bureau, Pulaski County. Wendy's. I think I stopped 3 times at Wendy's from Dallas to here yesterday. I was a hungry man, but thanks to Nan Trammell and her sponsorship of the Willie Roaf and Dan Hampton Award, go by and spend some money with Wendy's. Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings. I know some of you have come up and asked me about my lawsuit. Some of you wonder if it involves a woman. It does not. Let me just put that to rest right now. It's a real estate transaction, and I'm proud to have Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, Judy Henry, Seth Jewell, Antoine Phillips, all the folks at Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings representing me. They do a great job, and proud to have them as our one of our main sponsors. Crane Automotive, 13 total dealerships, 9 here in Central Arkansas. Go by and try to give them some of your business. Larry Crane and Chris Crane and their whole family have done a great job with this business, and they've been with us now for 5-6 years. Drew Dees, thank you for your support. Go by and visit the folks at Crane. The Democrat Gazette, Wally Hall, Amanda Copley will be presenting our Democrat Gazette Player of the Week here in just a few minutes, but we appreciate their sponsorship. And look like George Macris is out again today. Adam Mitchell. Adam, you hadn't missed a meeting yet, have you? I don't think so. Listen, George better watch it. George better watch it. You're nipping on his heels, aren't you? But glad to have Adam Mitchell and Chris White in for George today. And couldn't ask for a better presenting sponsor. They've helped us raise the bar in what we do. All of our sponsors, give them a chance to do some business with you. Let's give them a big round of applause today. Do you want to thank Matt Johnson back there on production? He does a great job for us. Dwayne Duncan, photography. Brent Passmore does our website information. RJ Hawk, who does our social media. And if you've wondered what our social media, there they are. That's for those who, now Rex, do you know what all that means? Hashtag LRTDC, at Little Rock Touchdown, or LR Touchdown Club. That's Twitter. And the website, lrtouchdown.com. How about that? We're covered social media-wise. And by the way, we were mentioning the USA Today this week, right? What was that? I can't even remember what that was about, Rex. What was it about? I sent it to you. That's how bad it is. I can't even remember. We're in USA Today for, who was our speaker? Was it Jeff Long?
It was something Jeff.
Yeah, so it's great to have a club that's picked up on social media and the national media like USA Today. I do want to thank our amazing check-in ladies. They do a great job. We are so thankful to have them. There are also three guys, Lee Danner, Ron Skaggs, and Louis Nally, who come in here. They're members, and they help Debbie set up all these little things, and they do it just out of the goodness of their heart. So I thank those three guys. I appreciate you guys. Now, let's give them a round of applause. And of course, Debbie Wyman, our executive director. Would all the ladies please stand real quick? And Debbie Wyman, who does such a great job. Let's stand up, everybody. Let's give them a round of applause. Stand up in the back. Got some special guests here we want to recognize. Rex, you know, at War Memorial this Saturday, there's going to be a game played. And that is UAPB and Alcorn State. It's a conference game, but they're going to try to make this a regular deal. The game's at 4 o'clock. And so we encourage you, if you don't have plans, get out and support them. This Thursday night, they have an event called Legends and Legacies, and that's at the Clinton Center. Keith Jackson will be there, Art Monk, Jackie Harris, Monty Coleman. Those monies that raised there will go to football scholarships, so UAPB can compete in the bigger games they want to compete in. So it's $250 a ticket, starts at 6, program starts at 7, so if you want to go by and support them. I know U.S. is here. We got to recognize U.S. Reed, the greatest shot in the history of the program. Please stand, U.S. Reed, everybody. Another Pine Bluff native, Ron Watson. Glad to have you here, Ron. Appreciate you being here. Tommy has mentioned this before. We may have more great athletes from Pine Bluff per capita than any other city. But anyway, so support them this Thursday night, Legends and Legacies, and then also the game Saturday. Let's go ahead and do our Democrat Gazette Player of the Week. While he's coming up here, found out that this young man was trained by one of the Razorback greats, and we'll introduce him. And glad to know that he's training maybe future Razorbacks or regardless, future athletes in high school and college. J.J. Metters. J.J., please stand. Glad to have J.J. Our Player of the Week is junior running back from Benton, Brandon Hunter. Now get this, Brandon rushed for 237 yards and 4 touchdowns. And that's a pretty good night if you just on the surface. But he did it on 14 carries. That averages 17 yards a carry. That is a ton of he scored on runs of 78, 4, 58, and 20. JJ said he runs about a 4.4, a 4.5 40. He plays for Benton. Benton's, I think, 3-1. They beat Parkview, a good Parkview team this past week, 30-17. He had 150 yards rushing there. So let's give him a touchdown club welcome. Brandon Hunter, the Democrat Gazette Player of the Week. All right, we've got, I do want to mention his unofficial guardian and a guy who's playing a big role in his life, John Wilson. Thank you, John, for playing an important role in a fine young man's life, and JJ, you too. All right, we had some ups and downs. We weren't the only fan base that were disappointed this weekend. Everybody, for the weekend wrap-up, Rex Nelson.
Thanks, David, and thank you all for being here. Congressman Shuler, thank you for being with us. Given my political background, I refer to him as Congressman Shuler. We do have a big crowd today. They wanted to come see you. He is one of 4 remaining Democrats in the South, so in endangered species, Congressman. So they did want to come get a look at you while they were here. You know, I do have, to make you feel a little bit better, I do have breaking news out of College Station. As you know, unfortunately, a few years ago, they had the accident and they had to cancel the Aggie bonfire. Well, we've had another cancellation that's reported. David, they are not going to be able at Texas A&M to have a nativity scene this Christmas. They couldn't find 3 wise men or a virgin on campus, so no nativity scene at Texas A&M this year, huh? Hey, you got to get your shots in where you can get them if you can't get them on the field, right? All right, let's get to it. 3 consecutive losses for the Hogs, 1 at each of their home stadiums, as they call it. Of course, I guess all 3 losses were War Memorial Stadium's fault, right? That's what the social media people told me 2 weeks ago. Arkansas falls in overtime 28-21, indeed a lot like last year's game. Aggies are 4-0, Hogs are 1-3. Arkansas loses a lead in the 4th quarter for the 8th time under Coach Bielema and for the 7th time in the past 9 SEC losses. Think about that for a minute. Since 2013, Arkansas is 0-9 in games decided by 7 points or less. No wonder some of your callers sounded suicidal when I listened to that late call-in show on Saturday night. I tell you, that was rough. Reminds me of the old Rodney Dangerfield. You remember Rodney Dangerfield, don't get no respect. Remember his line said, I called the suicide hotline and they put me on hold. That is what that felt like, listening to the suicide hotline. So 0-9 in games decided by 7 points or less. Aggie quarterback Kyle Allen torched the Hogs, 21 of 28, 358 yards, 2 touchdowns. Arkansas also hurt by 11 penalties for 93 yards. There's another holding penalty being called over there right now. A&M's winning streak now 4 games over the Razorbacks. Drew Morgan had a great game, 155 yards receiving for Arkansas, 8 receptions. That's the most yards by a Razorback receiver since Kobe Hamilton had 162 yards against the Aggies back in 2012. So great game for Drew. Attendance was 67,339. That's the second smallest of the 5 games between those 2 schools in Arlington. And Jerry Jones had a bad 18 hours too, didn't he? They transformed the field and Cowboys lost again. Toledo, now 2-0 against the state of Arkansas. 5 Arkansas State turnovers spelled doom. It wasn't even close, 37-7. Toledo over the Red Wolves. For a second consecutive game, ASU was without its quarterback, Freddie Knighton. Freshman quarterback James Tabry, bad game, threw 3 interceptions, lost a fumble, sacked 6 times. Rockets are now 3-0. Red Wolves are also 1-3. ASU was held to just 209 yards of offense. That is the lowest total so far in the Blake Anderson era there. And it took until the final Saturday of September, but UCA does get its first victory of the season. 49-21 over Northwestern State down in Natchitoches, Louisiana. Bears are 1-2. Most important, though, they're 1-0 in the Southland Conference. Quarterback Taylor Reed out of El Dorado did leave the game in the first quarter with a shoulder injury, but his backup, a guy named Hayden Hildebrand, who is a sophomore from Bossier City, Louisiana, came in and was 12 of 16 passing. Good game, 201 yards, 3 touchdowns. UCA had 521 yards of offense. Northwestern is 0-4. UAPB also 1-3. So we got Arkansas at 1-3, ASU at 1-3, UAPB at 1-3, and UCA at 1-2 among our 4 Division I teams. They're 0-2 in the SWAC, 28-9 to Alabama A&M in Huntsville, Alabama. UAPB had jumped to a 9-0 lead. D'Angelo Ballard was 20 of 30 passing for 353 yards, for UAPB. Now, I'll get down to Division II, and I'll find some Arkansas teams with a winning record, but we have to go down to Division II for that. 2 undefeated teams in the Great American Conference at the end of September. Arkansas Tech and Harding, both 4-0. Tech has this transfer quarterback from UAB. You'll remember they dropped their program. They're going to reinstitute it again. But a great football name, Arsenio Favor. I love that name. He's the real deal, apparently. He came from UAB, ran for 4 touchdowns, threw for another in Tech's 44-21 win over 2-2 Southern Arkansas. Wonder Boys jumped to a 24-0 lead in that game. Favor rushed for 79 yards. He was 17 of 23 passing for 224. Harding 4-0. 47-21 over 0-4 UAM. Bisons outgained the Boll Weevils on the ground. Get this, 333-28. Both Arkadelphia teams were home, went to both games on Saturday, and they outscored their 2 Oklahoma opponents by a combined 88-13. Ouachita and Henderson both 3-1. Ouachita beat Northwestern Oklahoma 55-13 as 2 freshman running backs combined for 5 rushing touchdowns. Donnell Huff, who's out of Liberty Ilo down by Texarkana, had 3 touchdowns. The other freshman, Chris Oliver from Arkadelphia, had 2 touchdowns on the ground. Henderson, meanwhile, shut out Southwestern Oklahoma, and that's a team that had scored 108 points in its previous 2 games. But the Reddies had 5 interceptions and shut them out 33-0. Henderson, by the way, has 12 interceptions through 4 games. That's more than all of last season. So you got Harding at 4-0, Tech at 4-0, Ouachita at 3-1, Henderson at 3-1, and those 4 teams play each other all in Arkadelphia this Saturday. So your top 4 all matching up. Leonard Fournette, as we go to the SEC of LSU, I think stays atop the Heisman watch right now. He rushed for 244 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tigers win 34-24 at Syracuse. LSU's 3-0. It was the 2nd consecutive 200-yard game and the 5th consecutive 100-yard game for Fournette. He has gained 621 yards in just 3 games thus far this season. Ole Miss. You knew they were going to come off that high and struggle a little bit, but they are 4-0, 27-16 as they struggle against 1-3 Vanderbilt in Oxford. Chad Kelly throwing for 321 yards. Florida is 4-0, and Tennessee's had some of the same fourth-quarter luck, Heath, as you know that Arkansas's had. They beat a 2-2 Tennessee team, 28-27, 11th consecutive win for a Florida team against a volunteer team, but it took a 63-yard touchdown pass with 1:26 remaining to do it. And then Tennessee twice missed a 55-yard field goal with 3 seconds remaining. The first one missed, but Florida had called a timeout. The second one was a lot closer, but it barely missed. So now Tennessee has lost 2 games after having had double-digit fourth-quarter leads in both of them, against Oklahoma and against Florida. Auburn, they're really struggling. Wouldn't want to be in Gus Malzahn's shoes right now. 2-2 overall, 0-2 in the conference, lose 17-9 at home to a 3-1 Mississippi State team. Malzahn had benched his quarterback, Jeremy Johnson. You remember some people were talking about him for the Heisman before the season. He went with a redshirt freshman named Sean White, but it didn't help. Auburn only scores 9 points. They really struggling. Kentucky, who knew they played football in Kentucky? They are this year. 3-1 overall, 2-1 in the conference as they upset Missouri, which is 3-1 overall, and now 0-1 in the SEC. 21-13 in Lexington. That ended an 18-game losing streak against ranked teams for Kentucky. Missouri's school record 11-game road winning streak ended at Lexington with that loss. And South Carolina, they're not very good. They're 2-2, but they continue to struggle. They had to come from behind to beat an 0-4 Central Florida team 31-14. Alabama went to 3-1, 34-0 over Louisiana Monroe. Monroe only had 92 yards of offense in that game. Far different from 8 years ago. You might remember Monroe beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa 21-14 in Nick Saban's first season. And Nick Saban swore he'd never smile again after that game, and he hasn't. So Alabama does come back, gets the win easily this time. Georgia, maybe they're the real deal. 4-0, 48-6 over Southern University from the SWAC. Nick Chubb rushing for 131 yards. We've got Eastern Kentucky at Kentucky this week. We've got San Jose State at Auburn. We got some really good conference games. I said Georgia may be for real. We'll find out Saturday afternoon. Alabama goes between the hedges in Athens. How many of you like Alabama to go into Athens and win that football game?
Wow, look at that.
How many of you like Georgia to win the football? Look at there.
Wow.
It's more overwhelming than I thought it would be. All right, Ole Miss at Florida. Is Florida for real? Is Ole Miss for real? How many of you like Ole Miss to go to the Swamp and win on Saturday? Wow. How many of you like Florida? Heavily Ole Miss there. Got Eastern Michigan at LSU. Mississippi State at Texas A&M. Aggies are 4-0, but they barely survived on Saturday. How many of you think the Bulldogs go into College Station and win? Few? Aggies? Heavily Aggies there. Good games, though. South Carolina at Missouri. Vanderbilt at Middle Tennessee. All right, Arkansas at Tennessee. He's going to be honest with his pick here. How many of you be honest with your pick? How many of you like Arkansas to go into Knoxville and win on Saturday? Tennessee. You got a few with you. All right. Games here in the state. We've got Idaho at Arkansas State. We've got Abilene Christian at UCA. As David said, we've got Alcorn at UAPB here in Little Rock at War Memorial Stadium. And then in Arkadelphia, I mentioned that doubleheader. Those four teams are 14-2. And Ouachita hosts Harding at 11 o'clock. Henderson hosts Arkansas Tech at 2 o'clock. You could park in one place, what I'm going to do, watch two college games and still be back home in time to see the Arkansas-Tennessee game. So Harding at Ouachita, Tech at Henderson. You've also got Bacone at Line. So games in Jonesboro, Conway, Little Rock, 2 in Arkadelphia, 1 in Batesville. Get out and see a college football game. Thanks, everybody.
I thought I was busy. Melissa, do you ever see Rex at all? I mean, you're married to the guy you never see. Maybe that's what makes the marriage work. Okay, I got you. At least that's what I hear. Listen, I have no idea how that works. I do want to say real quick before we bring Jim up to introduce Heath, a lot of banging on Brandon Allen. As you know, here at the Touchdown Club, we honored Brandon as a high school player. We honored Brooks Ellis. We honored Josh Liddell. And so we certainly want those kids that we've honored here at the Touchdown Club as high school players to do well. But as we discussed on our show today, from my perspective, if, you know, Brandon Allen may not be the greatest quarterback ever to play. He's not Matt Jones. He may not be Clint Sterner. But in my opinion as a former player, he's played well enough to give us a chance to win. And as we discussed today, and here's my mentality when I played. If I know that Brandon Allen is good enough to get me to the fourth quarter, to get me to the last two drives, this is what I say in the huddle. We look around at each other and we say, we are not going to let them score on this 80-yard drive. We decide the game right here, not the offense, not Brandon Allen. And that's what this team's got to do. Somebody's got to step up somewhere. Those offensive tackles who jump offside, they're going to look at each other and say, no penalties on this drive. So while it's easy and convenient to point to the quarterback, which, listen, but I think, in my opinion, as a former player, he's done enough each game. He's done his part. You can't expect him to play perfect. Somebody else has got to step up and make some plays there. So I just wanted to share that real quick. And that's just yeah, there you go. Now go get that boot. Listen, I tell you, it is Brandon Allen hate fest on the buzz sometimes. Great to have Heath Schuler here today. You know, he's got a family, he's got work, and the fact that he's taken time to come see us, we really appreciate it. Kind of find out he's great friends with Mike Ross, a guy who was actually my neighbor years ago. And, of course, he's done a lot of work with both Clintons, Bill and Hillary, while obviously he was in Washington. A great guy, a guy he's been successful about everything that he's done. And, Heath, we really appreciate you coming here today. Looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. Jim Rasco, will you come up and give him a Touchdown Club welcome? Jim Rasco, everybody.
Today's guest speaker was born and raised in Bryson City, North Carolina. The first write-up that I found about his career was while he was a 10th grader and a quarterback for Swain County High. The date was October the 7th, 1988, and the game report stated that Heath Schuler, the Maroon Devils quarterback, completed 10 of 12 passes for 163 yards in a 37-10 win over Edneyville. Now let's go to the following season, November 3rd, 1989. Quarterback Heath Shuler ran for 147 yards and 3 touchdowns, also completed all 7 of his passes for an additional 89 yards in a 55-17 victory over Murphy High. As a senior in 1990, Shuler passed for 3,626 yards and 42 touchdowns as he led Swain County High to its 3rd consecutive state championship. Also during his high school career, he ran for 2,530 yards and scored 30 touchdowns. It's no surprise he was named North Carolina's High School Player of the Year, and he was named as a Parade All-America quarterback. He narrowed his college choices to Alabama and Tennessee. It's interesting to note that both the head coaches that were battling for his signature have been our prior guest speakers here at our Touchdown Club. That would be Bill Curry, then at Alabama, and Johnny Majors, then at Tennessee. The University of Tennessee is only 90 miles from Bryson City, and the Vols won the recruiting battle. Another player the Vols signed that year was Leslie Ratliff, a 6-foot, 8-inch, 290-pound lineman from Newport, Arkansas. Ratliff later became a starting offensive tackle for Tennessee, but sadly passed away 6 years ago in a hospital here in Little Rock at the age of 35. As a freshman, Shuler played behind senior 3-year starter Andy Kelly. As a sophomore, Shuler became the starting quarterback, and the Vols opened the season with 5 straight wins, including SEC wins over Georgia, Florida, and LSU. After a 20-0 shutout of LSU, the Vols were ranked number 4 in the nation and played host to the Razorbacks at Knoxville in front of 95,202 fans on October the 10th, 1992. At the time, it was the largest crowd to ever see Arkansas play. Underdog Arkansas led 16-7 in the 3rd period, but Heath Shuler ran for 2 touchdowns, and the Vols kicked a field goal to take a lead of 24-16 with less than 3 minutes to play. Shuler then ran 14 yards on a quarterback draw that seemed to put a knife in the heart of the Hogs, but a penalty erased the run, and the Vols had to punt. With 2:28 left in the game, Razorback Orlando Waters returned a punt, 71 yards for a TD to cut the margin to 24-22. Another one of our former guest speakers, Barry Lunny Jr., was sacked on the 2-point conversion attempt, so the Vols held on to their slim lead. However, Arkansas recovered the onside kick. Lunny hit 2 straight 3rd down passes, and with 2 seconds left, Todd Wright kicked his 4th field goal of the game, this one from 41 yards to give the Hogs a 25-24 upset win. Shuler recovered from this loss and guided the Vols to a 9-win season, including a 38-23 win over Boston College in the Hall of Fame Bowl. Shuler ran for 2 TDs, passed for 2 TDs, and won the MVP trophy for the bowl game. And by the way, this bowl game was Phil Fulmer's first official game as the Vols head coach, replacing Johnny Majors. And yes, Phil Fulmer has been a previous guest speaker here at our club. Rex's lookalike. As a junior, our guest got his revenge against the Hogs here in Little Rock at War Memorial on the afternoon of October the 9th, 1993. After a scoreless first quarter, Shuler ran for a TD to put the 11th-ranked Vols up 7-0. After the Hogs tied the game, Shuler hit 27 and 53-yard passes to put the ball on the one, and Tennessee scored to lead 14-7 at the half. The 3rd quarter, Arkansas lost a fumble on their own 11, and on the first play, Shuler passed for a touchdown and a 21-7 lead. The Hogs cut the margin to 21-14 by the end of the 3rd quarter and intercepted a pass early in the 4th quarter. However, they went 3 and out, and Tennessee used up almost 7 minutes, and Shuler added the clinching TD on a 7-yard run to set the final score at 28-14. Shuler was the offensive star of the game as he ran for 2 touchdowns and hit 19 of 26 passes for 307 yards and another touchdown. Now, in the final moments of the game, apparently Arkansas thought the Vols were trying to score one more TD, and a field microphone picked up Arkansas's head coach, Danny Ford, saying something like, "I hope they tear up a knee right here." We'll let our speaker tell us if he remembers anything about that incident. Okay, Tennessee finished the 1993 regular season with a record of 9-1-1, a berth in the Citrus Bowl. Heath Shuler was unanimous All-SEC quarterback, the SEC Player of the Year, runner-up to Florida State's Charlie Ward in the voting for the Heisman Trophy. So it's no surprise that he passed up his senior year and decided to fulfill his lifelong dream of playing in the NFL. The Washington Redskins drafted him in the first round as the 3rd overall pick. As a rookie, he started 8 games for the Redskins and led all NFL quarterbacks with an average of 13.8 yards per pass completion. After 2 more seasons with the Redskins, he was traded to the Saints for the 1997 season and started 9 games before suffering a serious foot injury and undergoing 2 surgeries. He signed with the Raiders for the 1998 season, where he re-injured his foot in training camp and retired. He then returned to the University of Tennessee and completed his education with a degree in psychology. He became a real estate professional in Knoxville. He's married and has 2 children. He moved to Waynesville, North Carolina in 2003, and in 2006 he was elected to the United States House of Representatives, where he served until he retired on January 3rd, 2013. Please welcome the quarterback of the Tennessee Volunteers, number 21, Heath Shuler.
Exhaustive introduction. Got it all down.
Jim, thank you so much for the warm welcome and the introduction. That has to be the longest introduction ever. But thank you. I mean, that was really good. It brought back some incredible memories, but it also brought back some memories that broke my heart. That Arkansas game certainly broke my heart. That was the first official punt that I ever had in college. We punted on 3rd down. Coach Majors came. They signaled in the play, and it was the play was quick punt or Meyer. Meyer was a pass play that we had, and so the deal is I get in shotgun. If the safety doesn't drop back, then I punt the ball. Well, I'm in shotgun on 3rd down. What's the chances if he's going to drop back from thinking I'm going to punt it? Was not. So I called timeout, go to the sideline, tell Coach Former, and he was on the sidelines, and Coach Majors was the head coach. I said, "Are you sure we want to punt here?" And he goes, "Yeah, we need to get it out of the end zone." We were backed up, and so after the penalty, we got half the distance of the goal, so we're like on the 5-yard line. We punt it. Ball gets down on the 50-yard line, so we kind of gave up that short yardage distance for the Razorbacks. But you always kind of think about the plays that are those important plays and the big games, but it's always the ones that you get beat that you remember the most. I mean, you can kind of remember almost every aspect of that game and kind of the mental exercise that went through, and then obviously the heartache and the physicalness after the game. But if I look kind of see how things are going now with both Arkansas and Tennessee, I mean, we're kind of at that crossroads with our programs. I mean, we really are. I mean, Tennessee's come off of a very dismal last, 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, we haven't beaten Florida in 11 years. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about Florida. We hate Florida and Tennessee. I mean, just cannot. I mean, I just don't like Florida at all. But we really feel like we're on this is our breakout year. Our recruiting, we've been in the top 5 recruiting class for the last 2 years under Coach Butch Jones. We really feel like this is our year. And so Saturday's game is going to be there's going to be one team leave that feels like now they're on the right track. It doesn't have a difference. Whatever the score is at the end of the game, everybody's going to say, we're on the right track now, right? That's what the talk shows are going to be talking about, David, right? We're on the right track. The other team it's over. So you kind of feel sorry for both coaches and the players and everyone that's actively involved. But the commonality of what I'm seeing in both teams is what I really want to talk to you about today. Neither team has been finishing strong. It's that fourth quarter that's, whether we play as Tennessee, we've been up double digits going into to late in the game, and then we end up losing it, kind of like that Arkansas game at home in '92. You got to finish strong, right? You got to be able to finish the plays, finish the games, finish the time. Well, that's what I want to tell you. I've been very fortunate in my life. I mean, I cannot tell you how blessed that I have been. I mean, I've got the most incredible family. I went to an incredible school. My life has been just absolutely, I have been blessed. And at 35 years old, I'd played in the NFL. I'd, done very well in business. We had the fastest growing real estate company in the South at one time. In 18 months, we went from 3 employees to 250 employees. I mean, things were just, couldn't have gone better. And ended up selling the company and did some development, and then kind of retired for like the third time, I think, in my life. I continue to retire after a few years, and went back home and then ended up getting elected to Congress. I knew nothing about Congress. I had no idea what Congress was. If someone would have told me that was such a contact sport, I would have stayed on the sidelines. Wow. I mean, you know, the talk radio shows and sports is one thing, but I mean, boy, they get personal in politics. I mean, I didn't realize that they could just say whatever they want to and there's no recourse. I mean, they can lie about you, you know. They even made up a story that I had been sued, and come to find out, they said Mr. Schuler, come to find out they wanted to think that it was me, but it was actually another guy, had the same last name. You know, I'm thinking, I can't believe this. This is terrible. But, you know, I got a chance to be around some incredible people. I mean, I know Congress's numbers are in the tank, you know, and they're really, really bad, and probably deservingly so. But there's some really great people. I mean, the individuals that you get the chance to meet. You know, we probably don't always kind of see eye to eye on the issues. You know, there's a third of the members of Congress that are there for all the right reasons. Now, there's another third that are there for greed and power. Would you agree? Greed and power, yeah. And then there's a third, it's the absolute only job they could ever have. I mean, you wouldn't hire them. I mean, you guys would not hire them at the banks, I promise you. You can look around the room and they say, that's the people's house. It most certainly is. Every aspect of life is actually represented in the U.S. House of Representatives. It is unbelievable. So a good friend of mine over just right across the river in West Tennessee, a guy by the name of John Tanner, kind of the godfather, if you will, of the Blue Dogs, and which I was a part of that conservative Democrat group. Mike Ross was a part of it. Marion Barry was a part of that group as well. And so he told me, he said, you know, Heath, he said, for the first few months here, you're going to wonder, how in the world did I make it here to Congress? You know, and after about the second meeting of within our Democratic Party, I realized, how in the world did that guy get here? How did she get here? You know, it was quite amazing that who elected these people? You know, but incredible times. I mean, so I reflected back at age 35. I mean, my life has been so blessed. I got an incredible family. Have an eighth grader. My son's an eighth grader who plays ball. My daughter, she dances. She's a fifth grader. I mean, we've been so blessed. I married my high school sweetheart. I mean, when a teacher comes up to you in high school and says, I know this is going to sound a little strange, but I just met your future wife. I was a senior in high school. I said, there's not a chance that you have met my future wife. Well, little did I know. About 8 years later, after dating for all those years, we ended up getting married, and I mean, just such a blessing.
Wow, how about that? I got to give it up for that.
So, you know, so at 35, I looked in the mirror, after getting out of Congress, and now I'm 43, I kind of looked around myself and I said, you know, what's next? What's important in my life? What are the things that are important to me? I mean, you know, I started reflecting back to sports. You know, who helped me get there? Who was the person that mentored me? Who was that coach or that parent or that sponsor of our community that really helped? Who was the person that made a difference in my life? I mean, my high school coach, when I was a sophomore, I didn't like him very well. Even to the point I had nightmares about him. I could hear this guy screaming and yelling about what I was doing as a quarterback. Later, to make it all come back full circle, he believed in me. He cared about me. He pushed me to the bitter end. He knew what I was capable of doing. He wanted to get the most out of me. So I hired him. He ran my congressional office back home. Here was a guy that, and everybody says, oh, it's so great. You and Coach Dietz are back together again. You know, he coached your office. I said, yeah. And everybody talked about how everyone knows him. He's got a great reputation. He loves the people. I said, well, all those are great things, but the real reason, I'm the boss now. I'm the boss. Little did I know I was still the player. I mean, it didn't make a difference what the issue was. He was still the coach, and I was still the player. but people made a difference in your life. At 16 years old, entrepreneurship was really my true love. I mean, I loved football. Track was my favorite sport. But I love football, but I love to be an entrepreneur. So at 16, I started my own business and had just a car wash. It was called Mr. Clean's Car Wash and Wax. And for $25, you could get your car cleaned on the inside and outside and wax. I mean, it was a pretty good deal. And so I wanted to stay physically in good shape. I went in a really small community in Bryson City. Population under 10,000, one of the largest counties in the whole state, but it's 83% the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. About 1,500 people inside the city limits. A little small 1A school, but great place to grow up. So we started a little car wash, and I ended up hiring some of my players and went and worked out a deal with the car dealerships and the little small Ford dealership and the little small Chevrolet dealership and said, hey, look, I know that you need to get your cars clean when they bring them in. I need revenue when it rains outside, so every day that it rains, I'll be here and I'll wash and clean all your vehicles. So we had a good business going. Well, there was this one gentleman in our community who was an accountant. He's the only guy that you could really point to in our community that you felt like he was really wealthy. He had a Porsche. And so when he came to my car wash one day, he goes, Heath, he said, would you mind washing my vehicle? I said, oh, absolutely. You know, this guy's got a Porsche. So he comes to me and says, all right, go to my garage. And what I would do to stay physically in good shape, I would run from my car wash to their house and pick up their vehicle, and that was my exercise, staying physically in good shape. So I ran up to his house, brought it back, washed his Porsche. Next week, he said, I want you to wash it every week. So 2 weeks in a row went by. The third week, I went to get it, and I noticed he had not driven this car one time since the last time I washed it. So I go to him, I said, there's no use me washing the vehicle today, but, you know, just let me know when it gets dirty and I'll be happy to wash it. He goes, no, I want you to wash my vehicle every single Friday. So 2 weeks later went by. I said, you haven't driven your car again. Wash my vehicle every single Friday. So what was it really about? Was it really about me washing his vehicle? Or was it about him giving back to a young kid growing up in a community? It was about his way of giving back to me, not by just handing me money, but making me and allowing me to work for it. He made a difference in my life. He was that person that I had to work for it, but he is willing to give me a job. Think about in your life. Reflect back to the people that's been that important person, that important mentor. So how are you going to live the remaining parts of your life? Are you going to be a mentor? Are you going to make a difference? I look back to high school was incredible and went to college. You know, when you go to college, you get educated, right? So Coach Majors comes to me my freshman year, and he says, Heath, there's a small church down in Sweetwater, Tennessee that would like for you to come and give your testimony. I understand you like to give your testimony to church. I said, absolutely. I like speaking to kids, but I've never got up in front of adults and had a conversation about my faith. He said, well, wear your best that you have and go down to Sweetwater. Here's the directions. They're expecting you on Saturday afternoon. I said, okay, great. Well, the thing that I was thinking in the back of my mind, I have just finished my first speech class in college, so I knew everything that I needed to know. So I quickly went back to the dorm room, and I outlined my speech exactly like my professor had told me to do. Had it perfect. Rehearsed it in front of the mirror. Well, go down to Sweetwater, and, you know, Tennessee fans are fanatics, very, very similar to the Arkansas fans here. When you show up, I mean, you're at church, you're assuming everyone else is going to wear their Sunday best. No. Everyone was dressed like Emma today in all orange. So I get right up to the church, and I have a little cone, and I pull in a little sign welcoming the quarterback, and I'm so excited about it. And they quickly, the pastor's there, and I shake hands, and we go right in. I mean, the church was packed. 300 or 400 people. I mean, people in the aisles. They even had another sanctuary that they was actually televising it through, and I couldn't believe this is unbelievable. So I'm on the front row. I mean, the front row. They introduced me, and I get up to the podium, and I realized that my speech is in my coat that's in my car. So as a quarterback, you have to think on your feet, right? I had two choices. One is I've got to find the most long-winded deacon of that church to give the prayer. So that would enable me to run out the back door, get to my car, get my speech, and come back, and hopefully he's not finished. Or kneel behind the podium and find that deacon, ask him to pray for you, and kneel behind and start praying heavily because I have forgotten my speech. Well, I did. I called a TV timeout, right? I asked for the deacon to pray for me. The deacon prayed for me, and I asked for God's guidance. So I was able to speak that night from my heart. And it wasn't what I had written on the paper. It was about a reflection that I had in my life. It was about people along the way had given me so much. It was time for me to give back. And so I gave my testimony at the very end of the invitation to come forward. This little young man, about 12 years old. I had my eyes closed, and I was down front. He tugged on my coat and startled me. He goes, "I want to know God the way you know God." And that was the first time I'd ever cried in public. Because I got on a knee and I witnessed to this young man, and I prayed with this young man. And realized pretty quickly it wasn't those scores on the football field. It wasn't what they were talking about on the radio shows that were good. It wasn't the things that they were writing in the newspaper. But it was about making a difference in a young man's life. So as I reflected back at 40 years old, what I was going to do with the rest of mine, I looked back to the things that were more important to me, to the real challenges that people are facing in life. I look back to the people who'd made a difference in mine. Coach Cutcliffe, who I think received an award here, he always told me, he says, "Heath, have a plan." And he was talking primarily on the football field. Regardless of the situation, the down and the distance, is to actually have a plan. He coached two other great quarterbacks, really great quarterbacks, this guy named Eli and Peyton Manning. So kind of knows what he's talking about. And he's been very successful at Duke University right now. But I always remembered, you would think back, you would think that it was all the times and the amount of meetings that we had, times together, that something would sink in about what he was telling me about the game of football. But it was more about the game of life. He said, have a plan. What's my plan going forward? What is your plan going forward? How will you make a difference in that next person's life? Well, he certainly was there for me. And I looked all along the way of people that were there for me. In the real estate business, I had a lady that her real estate license were 1,001. So you can only imagine having your real estate license 1,001. That she had some incredible experience. She was our most senior person in the entire company. And she took me around a few homes, and she was my mentor, and she discussed real estate to me, and she talked about how we were building things, and we were a marketing machine, and things were going great. But she told me to take a time out and kind of look around what was happening. If it wasn't for her, I don't know what would have happened. I'd have probably still been in the real estate business when the market fell. But she was 3 years ahead of her time when she says, these people can't afford the houses that they're purchasing. They can't afford the ones that they just have. They can't afford the ones that they are going into. So we got out of the market altogether. She made a difference. Now look at my grandmother. I look at my mom. And David said we're going to have time for some Q&A, so I'll probably wrap up quickly here because I love to hear some of your questions. But I want to leave you with something that it was a gift that my mom gave me. And we're talking about our own lives and the differences that we're making and how we'll finish. I mean, are we going to finish strong the rest of our lives? It doesn't make a difference how old you are or what you've accomplished in life. Because you can't take this money with you, folks. You can't take those newspaper articles with you. You can't take the trophies with you. But what you can do is you can give to that next generation. You can give to that young man, coach, as you're doing today, to make a difference in their lives. And if there's one thing you can pass down as a mentor, that goes forever, because that young man or that young lady has an opportunity to pass it down to the next generation. Going into the 8th grade was considered high school where I grew up. Like I said, Bryson City is a really small town. So my mom felt led to tell me that I have a gift for you when you get to school, and it's in your notebook. So immediately, thinking smart, thinking, great. What can fit inside a notebook? It obviously folds, right? It's money. So I thought, great, my mom's giving me extra spending money for school. I'm in the 8th grade. I need a little change going around. My dad was a mailman. How in the world did they come up with enough money to give me some extra spending money? Is it something I just get to have in my pocket? Well, I get there, and I notice as I open my notebook right before class started, it wasn't money. But it was a note. And it's a note that I want to share with you. And hopefully that you can share it with that next generation or whomever you're mentoring. And it was a note that read this. It says, Heath, make each and every decision as if I am standing beside you. Wow. I'm going in the 8th grade. Those of you who have had teenagers know what I'm talking about, or are going through that know what I'm talking about. She said, for when I am not there, there's always someone above who is. Ouch. Make each and every decision if I'm standing beside you. That takes a lot of decision making, makes it easier, doesn't it? The decisions that I was faced in life, the things that I was going to do with the rest of my life. And so how will I finish? Will I finish based upon having the graces of God standing beside me and having my mom being proud of what her son did? You think my mom really cares about the trophies? And she never cared about any of that, but she cared about what her son was going to do in the community. So I've rewritten mine. Note to myself. And it says this. It says, Heath, make each and every decision as if my wife, Nicole, my son, Navy, and my daughter, Island, are standing beside me. For when they are not there, God always is. So as we're going through our life, and we're making decisions, and we're mentoring people, we're going to decide how we're going to finish. A little constant reminder that there's always people looking at you, regardless if you think you're a mentor or not, good, bad, or indifferent. There's always those eyes upon you. They're looking to see how you will handle the situation, how you will deal with adversity in life, how you will deal with success. So finish strong. Now, Saturday, one of these teams aren't going to finish so strong. And it very well just may be my Vols. But if it's not, there's always a lesson to be learned about how we conduct ourselves with the utmost integrity, respect, and character, with good judgment. So I can't thank you guys enough, and I'll say something here at the end, but I want you guys to have an opportunity to ask some questions and let me know about the time.
I'll be the first. First of all, did you say your kids' names were Navy and Island?
Yes.
You got to answer that real quick, if you don't mind. That, and then wow, that's the other thing. If you could, real quick, give us your thoughts on these coaches. These, remember, old school, Steve Spurrier, Majors, Fulmer. Just the first thing that comes to mind when you think of those three guys. And then Bielema and Butch Jones.
Okay. There's no great story about whether or not having my kids' names. They're nautical names, living in the mountains of this Great Smoky Mountain National Park. How do we come up with nautical names is beyond me. We were late in the 8.5 months in. We still haven't named my son. And my wife got in the road atlas, and I got in the phone book, and we come up with Navy, you know. If somebody can come up with a really good story, I need one, as you can tell. We just found out we're having a daughter. We're coming back from the doctor's office. Now, I'm taking consideration 8.5 months trying to figure out the first name. A truck passed us, and I said, it was Island Transportation. I said, what about that? She goes, you want to name our daughter Transportation? I said, no, Island. And sure enough, so Island was the name given to our daughter. So. Okay, I got a great Coach Spurrier story. So as I said, I grew up in a small town. We had just won our state champion, our third state championship in football, and all the college coaches were coming around and visiting, and they'd come watch. And so I played basketball, fouled every play. And the coach Spurrier called my dad and said, "Hey, would you mind? I'd like to come watch Heath play, watch his athleticism on the basketball court. I'd really like to really focus on the game. And can you make sure you have some security beside me? Because I don't want to tell anybody no for taking pictures and no for autographs. I'll do that after the game, but I really want to focus in." And so my dad was like, security in this little small town. So my dad called the local sheriff. He said, "Oh, sure, we'll be happy to meet him at the local drive-in that we had." Met him there, and they escorted Coach up to the game. And we're starting to do the introductions. You know how you're sitting on the bench and the lights are about half dim and they're getting ready to call your name out. Well, one of my players looked at me and punched me and goes, "Look over there." And I went, "Oh, great." And here's Coach Spurrier with two officers standing beside him. He goes, "Can you believe this?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah." I wasn't saying a whole lot about it because I just wanted to remain calm about Coach Spurrier being there, who was at Florida at the time. He goes, "Man, we've been so good in football. We're going to be great in basketball." He said, "They're bringing the inmates down here to watch us play now." I said, "You've got to be kidding." I said, "That's the head coach of the University of Florida. That's Coach Steve Spurrier." He goes, "I don't know who that is." He said, "But there's a guy standing out there with two cops." He said, "They're bringing the inmates." I said, "He is not an inmate. He's an actual one of the greatest coaches." So Coach Spurrier, I actually, it's hard to say for a Tennessee fan to say something positive about a Florida coach, certainly the one I played against, but absolutely incredible guy. I mean, he is. I like his. He's a winner. I mean, I know he's struggling right now at South Carolina, but I am so glad he's back in the SEC. That way we can beat up on him. But also, I think he brings a sense of that. Brings something to the game that a lot of coaches haven't been able to bring. I mean, he has a willingness to never quit. I mean, he's going to play to the last snap. He does a great job of recruiting, and he coaches quarterbacks extremely well. So, I've got a lot of positive things to say about Coach. He is a winner. And, if you look at Coach Majors, he was a guy that recruited me at the University of Tennessee, and it was a very difficult time. Arkansas, probably the Arkansas game in '92 is probably the reason Coach Majors, was released for his duties at coaching probably. We had just come off of 3 really big wins with LSU, Georgia, and Florida. 2 out of the 3 were ranked in the top 10, I think, at that time. So we had really come off some big victories, and that was under the interim time that Coach Fulmer had. And so it was a very tough. I've remained really strong friends with both of them, and I don't think they get along as well with one another. I think there was something said here a few years ago, but I can certainly say that. There are difference of coaching, the way they coached. Coach Majors more the old school. He's the tough coach. Coach Fulmer, he's a player's coach. surrounded himself by some good people, and it's two guys that I've got the utmost respect and love for, and were great mentors to me, and they made a difference in my life, and both impacted it in a very positive way. So I got a lot of. Who was the other one?
Butch Jones. And
Butch Jones, yes. So I think here's two coaches that are at great schools, both in the SEC. This is their time. This is their moment in their coaching career. They've got to make the difference. This is a time for them to make that next step in their coaching career, and how will they be able to do it? I think Coach Jones has done a great job of recruiting. What I understand from having conversation with David is Arkansas has done a good job, and Tennessee's done a good job of getting the former players back engaged in the programs. That's so important. As a former player, you want to be engaged back in your program because you have sons that are coming along that ultimately you'd either like to see there, or it's great for your university to make sure that they can have a very talented kid. I mean, we've seen that with the McKenzie boy that just signed the University of Tennessee. His father, actually his father and uncle both played. Reggie and Raleigh McKenzie both played in the NFL, played at Tennessee. Now he's there. Kevin Mays, a guy that I played ball with at Tennessee, his son's, I guess he's the number one sophomore in the country, 6'6", 320 pounds, and is probably as nasty a player as his father was, and so it makes him a great offensive lineman, the guy that you want on your team. So I think they both have the future is very bright for both. I think this game's actually very important, what happens to both programs. Other questions? Now, don't be a shy group. I know this is not a shy.
You might want to say about the Coach Ford, what he
the Coach Ford thing, yes. So where I lived in North Carolina was the western part of the state. Clemson's very close. Tennessee and Clemson are very logistically very close to where I grew up. So my high school football coach won one of the – in 20 years, he averaged over 10 wins a year. So imagine that. In 20 years, he won over 200 football games. He averaged 10 wins a year. I mean, very successful. All the coaches knew him. He and Coach Ford had something very in common. They both liked cattle. So they just wouldn't talk football. They would talk cattle a lot. So after the comment that Coach Ford made, I don't think anyone else had to call him but Coach Dietz. And he picked up the phone and called Coach Ford. And from what I understand, they had a conversation. And I didn't take it personal. I didn't think, that's heat of the moment, heat of the game, and,
What did you hear was said?
I think it was very similar, like break your leg, break your knee, or something like that, tear up a knee or something. Whatever it was, it was a heat of the moment. I didn't take it personal, but I will tell you this. The integrity of Coach Ford, he actually wrote me a really nice letter and apologized, which that meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot to my high school coach as well. But, I did not take it personal. Probably wasn't the right thing to say, but, I was running a little bit that day. So.
Yeah, you said you didn't like your football coach your sophomore year in high school, but later you hired him to work for you. What changed about the relationship?
I think I finally started to realize, as a sophomore, I realized that, I wasn't mature enough to know what he was actually doing. That he was trying to make me not only a better player, but a better person. And he was trying to push me to my limits and my break at times, I felt. But we actually become extremely close. And he always would say, if you'll learn this offense well enough, but your senior year, I'm going to let you call plays. Well, I made him stick to his words, and I got to call a few plays and called a couple of games. And it's been a relationship, and you could probably tell, my relationship is so close. He's another father to me. He's definitely been that mentor to me, a work ethic. Even to this day when he is out of our congressional office per se, but he still spends a tremendous amount of time. People will call him and ask him, can you help with my Social Security? Can you help me with my VA benefits? On his own, voluntarily, he helps so many people. And when you surround yourself by good people like him, good things happen, and you're able to make a difference in people's lives. So, love the guy.
Last question.
Thank you for coming today. Go Vols.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Let me ask you about the 92 season. That had to have been a roller coaster for the players as well as for us as fans, those 3 heartbreaking losses. How did that correct itself then before the bowl game for you as players?
Well, I think there was a division actually early in the season when things were, there were people taking Coach Major's side, players that were taken, Coach Fulmer's side. So as the starter and as a quarterback, we had to make it more about, internally just the team. We couldn't let the outside, the focus of who was going to be our coach. We had to bring it totally internally, and that was a time of kind of finding our way as not only as players but as adults, because it was real easy to be able to stand in front of the mic and say what people wanted to hear, or tell the story, or be the person that was going to leak the feelings of the players out. So we actually just came together as a team and put our differences aside, because there were players who chose different coaches. We could not allow that to be public. And I think it was a maturity part that a lot of our players, I think today, that they look back, that was a challenge. I mean, we'd come off of so many big wins, and then we had those losses. Alabama was pretty good that year, if you recall. I think they won the national championship that year. So Copeland, Curry, and those guys played extremely well. But, I mean, it was just truly a challenge. I mean, it was truly a challenge to grow up. And as a sophomore in college, standing in front of the mic, and you had to answer the questions about your coaches, you had to, maybe that's where the politics came out at an early age. You had to be politically correct, because you didn't know who was going to be the next coach. But I can't thank you enough. David, thanks for the invitation. I mean, you guys have really been something special. I mean, he told me about your energy, and Emma got a chance to be here and wear her stuff. One of my former players, Kurt Haas, is here, and his wife. I mean, to be able to see people that you haven't seen in such a long time, and to be able to have an incredible memories of playing together. And I look at there, and I was captains with Willie Rofe, and the first time I ever saw Willie, they said, "There's your offensive lineman." Of course, I knew who Willie Rofe was. But Willie walked to this kind of odd gait. I don't know if you guys have seen Willie walk. He's got kind of an odd gait, and I'm thinking, is he hurt or is? But then you watch him play, and you're like, there's not a better, greater, without a doubt, probably the best left tackle to ever play the game, in my opinion. I mean, and a true leader and a gentleman from the word go. And so the state of Arkansas has delivered a lot in my life, and he's a guy that was a difference maker. And him being an older, more veteran player, he led the way as a leader. And, so I was kind of, I told him he was the real captain. I was just the co-captain. But a lot of respect for a lot of people. And, in your life, just take a moment and pause and decide how you're going to finish. How will you finish your life? What will you be noted for? Who are the differences in the lives that you're going to be making and changing? At the very end of the day, that's what we're going to be able to pass down, that legacy. That legacy is far more important than the lives that you touched, whether it be a young man at 12 years old changing his life forever, or be a man who's given back because he had a lot to a young man. I owe a lot to a lot of people, and I'm very blessed and very humbled to be here today, to be able to share a message with you, and hopefully you too will finish strong. God bless you all.
Great job. Heath Schuler, everybody. Thank you, Heath. Jay Barker next week. Please RSVP. Pick up your pictures, too, if you hadn't had your pictures. You have VIP, 50-yard line members, sponsors. Get your pictures up here with Heath. Don't forget to